Hello friends, welcome back to the shop and welcome back to the third and probably final segment in this Bing's Favorite Restoration series. This is the subject that we've been working on, and when last I spoke with you I was working on the rim, and I've done I think this was 4 applications of the Murphy's oil soap, let it sit for about 20 minutes and then wipe it off, using a bit of scrubbing with a paper towel, nothing too harsh, and you can see it got most of that off, although there is some charring there, especially right around the front of the bowl right here. Now I thought about sanding it and topping it, but the truth is I don't want to remove that much of the bowl. One of the main things about this pipe is its unique shape and the proportions, and I don't want to ruin those. So I'm going to just live with the charring. It's okay. It's just part of this pipe story. You can see that the stain lightened a bit here, and that does happen on some pipes, not all pipes, but some pipes. When I use this oil soap treatment, it will darken up again as it's being smoked. Also, I don't mind that bit of contrast. I mean, I think it's kind of nice, and I think once everything is polished and waxed, it'll be fine. So we've got this is pretty much ready for the bowl. Oh, one other thing I did, I used a toothbrush and some dilute Murphy's oil soap, mixed with some water, and just scrubbed the outside here, and I'll do that on rusticated pipes. This one was in actually very good shape externally. It was just the inside that was a mess, so I didn't need to do much in the way of cleaning the outside. So I just scrubbed that off and wiped it down with a damp paper towel and let it dry. So we're going to set that off to the side now and turn our attention to the stem. There's a couple things I want to do with the stem. As I mentioned in the overview video, the stem is in very good shape, but there's just a little bit of chatter in the, mostly on the underside here. Yeah, I think you can see it in the light. It's very minor, so I'm going to sand that out. It will only take me a few minutes to sand that down. I'll start at 220 with a couple of very light passes, go all the way up to 800 grit, and then I'll take it over to the buffer and buff the stem, and that'll be done. So that'll be almost no effort, and I'll do that off screen. Also, it seems almost like the button's been, like, I don't know if I can show you it, but you can hear it. It's almost like the button's been chewed on. So I'm going to sand that a bit too, just to smooth that out. It should be nice and smooth, but it's got these rough spots. So we'll take care of that, but all the work on the stem is happening in this last quarter inch or so. Everything else is in pristine condition. So we'll deal with that, we'll buff the whole stem, and it will be ready to go. Now I told you this is a filter pipe, and I don't use filters, so I needed to make an adapter for that. And this is what I've come up with. Now this is clearly anyone that knows the Savinelli adapters knows that I copied it from one of their adapters. I did have to figure out how big to make it, and to do that, oops, sorry, knocking a few things around here. To do that, I just took some simple measurements, and I'll sort of walk you through those in case you want to do something similar. But basically you have to measure the depth of the hole in the tenon here. So how far back would the filter be expected to go? And then you also have to measure how much room you have in the shank here for the filter to go. And that gives you 2 numbers, but then of course you've got the overlap in those two, which is produced by the tenon itself. So you wind up with this really simple formula where you're adding these two together and then subtracting the tenon length. And that gave me 1 3/8 inch, and that actually works out really nicely. So I took a piece of, and I dropped my example on the floor, here it is. So I took a piece of this Delrin stock, and this is something that I use for tenon replacements usually, but chucked it in the lathe, turned it to the proper size. The outer dimensions on this turned out to be 0.263 inches, and I put these little, what would I call those? Notches, I guess, in there, just so that this doesn't get stuck. I want to be able to remove it, but you see it does fit in there quite well. It's a vacuum seal, and this will then fit nicely back into the pipe, and everybody's happy. And it's got a very nice draw. So there wasn't a lot of engineering to this, really. For those of you that are interested in such things, I wound up drilling it 1/8 inch, which is probably a bit large, but I like a wide open draw. And then I funneled the ends of, well, funneled isn't really the right word, chamfered the ends. Hopefully you can see that. Just enough to prevent there from being any steps in the airway. So there's going to be a bit of a narrowing here, but that chamfering will hopefully allow the air to flow smoothly, and then it will be able to flow back out the other side. So we'll try it out and see how it goes. But that's the filter adapter in place. All right, so I'm going to clean up this stem. Oh, there's one other thing I want to do to the stem, and I'll actually start that right now. And let me see if I can illustrate this. So I've got a little thin piece of metal here. Actually, I've got a better one. So if I insert that down, let me get this out of the way because that's just busying up the background. So if I insert this into the airway, I'm now applying pressure towards myself. And as I pull it, just pay attention to where that metal's going into the airway. You see that quick jump there? So it's nice and smooth, and then bang. That's because the way Savinelli in their wisdom made this stem is they drilled it, and you can see the drill hole there in the center. Actually, make this super obvious for you. Oh, sorry, knocking things over. I will put a pipe cleaner up from underneath. So you can see where that pipe cleaner is coming through there in the center. And all they did around that is they took basically a cutter like this and came in and cut the slot. Actually, that might have been exactly the cutter they used because that fits perfectly. So the problem there is that you get a step in your airway. You've got an airway that looks like this. And what you really want is an airway that looks like that. Oops, sorry, it's a little out of shot. So this is what we'd like to get, and Savinelli has a factory method to approach that with a drill and a cutter, but it's still, you're going to get some turbulence around these edges here. It's just not ideal. It's not going to give you the best quality smoking experience. So I'm going to fix that, and this is not hard to do. I have these little, they're actually saws, they're wire saws. I get these from Vermont Freehand, but they're really wonderful because they easily fit down into the draft hole, and they let you just sort of work away at the inside there. And you can see we're getting some acrylic dust, and they cut fairly fast. I'm not putting a lot of force on them, on the saw rather, because I don't want it to cut too fast. I want to be able to control it. And we'll pretty much do that on both sides until we have that funneling. And what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera because it's very hard for me to show you exactly what I'm doing here. And I'll bring you back and I'll do that wire test again to show you the difference that it makes. So, see you in a minute. And we're back. So I've gone ahead and taken care of that funneling issue. And let me just show you again using this wire. Pay attention to the area where the wire is just exiting the stem. And you see it's not until the very end there that it drops off. And we'll do the other side as well. Right at the very end. So we now have more of a smooth funnel in the airway, and that will definitely improve the smoking quality. If you want to do this yourself, it's very easy. This took maybe 3 minutes for me to do using this wire saw. And again, you can get these from Steve Norris at Vermont Freehand. I think they're like $4 each. They're very inexpensive, and it's really easy. Anyone could do this themselves, and it's actually quite difficult to mess up because you've got the slots already there to guide you. So as long as you don't go crazy and like cut into the edges beyond where that slot has been cut, you'll be fine. Okay, I also took care of that tooth chatter and the little bit of roughness that was on the button. Polished this up. You can see there's still some polishing compound on here that I haven't cleaned off yet, but we'll get that all cleaned off before we put a layer of wax on it. And the stem is pretty much done, ready to be reattached to the pipe and to be smoked. On the stummel, haven't done anything since last we talked, obviously, since last we saw it, because I've been focusing on the stem and get this very sharp wire out of my way so I don't stab myself. So the last thing I want to do on the stummel before I wax and buff it is that I want to actually put in a bowl coating. Now the reason for that, and I know bowl coatings are a bit contentious and some folks love them and some folks hate them and all that, I just want to make sure that there's an even probability of burning and cake forming around the inside of this bowl regardless. And to do that, the only real way to do it is to apply a layer of carbon that will seed that. So right now we've got this stuff that I use to fill the void. We've got bear briar, we've got thin cake, and that's going to leave areas that are going to get more burnt, less burnt, more carbonized, less carbonized, and it just increases the probability that there's going to be another burnout. Now, we'll have to have a talk about bowl coating someday because it's a somewhat contentious issue. But by and large, bowl coatings are designed to do exactly what I'm saying, to provide that uniform break-in experience. Now, if you've been smoking pipes for 30 years and you've broken in hundreds of them, you don't need a bowl coating. But the guy who's just starting out, who buys an expensive pipe, or even a not expensive pipe, he's got a much higher likelihood of burning through that bowl if he doesn't have a bowl coating on it. So personally, I don't like them on my pipes, but I understand why they're used. And I think in a case like this, where there is going to be all these different areas that could burn differently, I think it's just absolutely essential. So the bowl coating that I'm going to use, so bowl coatings are, there's probably a recipe for every pipe maker out there because I think every pipe maker uses a different one. They're all very similar in a sense. They all involve some sort of carbon. In this case, I'm using activated charcoal for the bowl coating. They all involve some kind of binding agent. Now that binding agent can be a chemical like sodium silicate. It can be a natural product like maple syrup or honey. There are some people that use complex mixtures of buttermilk and sour cream, and they all work fine. And in the end, you just need something to get this activated charcoal to stick to the walls so that you can use it as a beginning seeding source. So I'm going to use this. This is actually an activated charcoal sodium silicate mixture. I'm not going to go into the details on this because you're very unlikely to be doing this on your own. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this liberally inside the bowl. I'll use a pipe cleaner to move it around just like I would putting the stain on the outside of the bowl. And I just want to make sure that I get this thoroughly all over all the internal surfaces. Sorry, I'm out of shot there. This is not easy to do because it dries quickly, so I'm not going to do this on camera. But you've seen the stuff, you've seen how I'm doing it, and you see what it is that we're dealing with in there. So I'll bring you back once this is completely coated, and hopefully you'll be able to say, well, that looks much more uniform. See you soon. So I've applied the bowl coating, and it's not going to have that beautiful black matte appearance that you're used to, because there's just too many rough spots in here for it to really look that way. The important thing is it's covered up any spots that might potentially lead to additional burnout. So I'm pretty confident now that this pipe will be smokable. Whether or not that repair will hold remains to be seen, but I think we've got a smokable pipe. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a last buff and wax along with the stem, and I'll bring you back to see the finished product. And my friends, I believe that we have a finished pipe here. So the wax has restored some of the luster to that beautiful rusticated finish that Savinelli has. I really do like the look of that finish. I'm not sure if that's the dolomite finish or not, but it's really pretty. The stem polished up beautifully. Again, it was in really good shape to begin with, so it wasn't a lot of work to do there at all. But we did get rid of all the tooth chatter, and that the airway is now properly funneled, so it'll smoke well. We've got the insert in place so that the airway is consistent diameter all the way through. The top, I was going back and forth on whether I should sand this down and whether I should stain it darker to try to get rid of these obvious burn marks that are here. But as I was buffing it, I noticed that the transition area right in here is actually, there's an area there where they stopped the rustication short of the end of the stummel. And you can see that has left a natural color quite similar to what we have here on the rim of the pipe. So I'm glad we made the decision to not stain that and to leave it as is. I think it goes well with that transition band, and it's probably what the original intent was. So the cleaning did just reveal the original stain, and that's perfect. So other than that slight blemish there that, I'd rather preserve the proportions of the pipe than get rid of that, we're in really good shape. Internally, everything up to the bowl was perfect, clean and ready to go. The repair that we did inside the bowl, it's a nice smooth surface now, so it's continuous all the way around. There's no worries about continued burnout in that spot. The light bowl coating that we used will prevent any other areas from kind of flaring up, especially around the perimeter of that repair, where you might have some raw briar exposed to the hot tobacco. So I'm pretty certain we're not going to have any additional burnouts. The only thing that I'm worried about is whether or not that block of repair material that we put in there is going to stay in there. It may, and once we get a cake forming over top of it, it will be secured. But there's going to be a period of maybe about a month or so where I'm going to be smoking this pipe and just watching that carefully to see if it succeeds. And I'm sure, as I said earlier, there will be videos in the future where I talk more about this repair method, actually tell you what it was that I used, or maybe come up with something better. But right now this is still too experimental to put out there as a method that you all could use. Anyway, I'm looking forward to smoking this Bing's Favorite. It's a pipe that I've admired for a long time and have certainly been wanting for a long time. I picked this up on eBay actually about almost 2 years ago now. Just haven't had the chance to work on it. So I was glad I got a little bit of lull in other work and was able to get this done. And I'm going to go load it up with something on the burly side of life and smoke it. So thank you all for watching this. I hope you enjoyed the series. If you did and you'd like to stay up to date on future series like this, please hit the subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, I greatly appreciate that. And as always, I always look forward to your comments and questions, either in the comment section or by visiting my website at canerodpipes.com. So until next time, thank you all for watching, and I look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Goodbye now.